Happy Thanksgiving. This is a new one. I am coming to you from Salt Lake City. I'm in the airport. I'm on a 3-hour layover. It's Matt Norlander. I have been trying to podcast about the Maui Invitational for more than 3 days, but because of the time changes, the insane cycle of games and results, being 5 hours behind is a real challenge, but I've been wanting to talk to you about what I saw and what I experienced on the ground there for a while. I'm doing this on less than an hour's sleep. I got a couple of things about air travel that are definitely novel and have never been said before. I might try and get that done before we're out of the pod here. I hope everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving. It was a dream assignment to get to cover this tournament, and I had a wonderful time, and it's so great to be talking to you. By the way, I don't know how kosher this is or not. Like, the sun's not yet up in Salt Lake City. Dude doing a podcast in the middle of a relatively open space, like, am I being a douche right now? I don't know, but we're going to do it anyway here. Nada, you're the man for getting up and getting this done. Let's talk Maui Invitational. And although UConn going 0-3 is probably the biggest story. That's, by the way, that's another feature. Hold on. Yeah. Overhead announcements. Can't dodge them. Just going to be part of the deal here. Roll with me, people. You're getting a pod on Thanksgiving. Just be thankful for that, I guess. We're starting with the Auburn Tigers here because they won the thing. They have the best resume in college basketball. They look like the best team in college basketball. They have the best player in college basketball. They have one of the best front lines in college basketball. They could have one of the best on-ball defenders in college basketball in the backcourt. Bruce Pearl's group, Auburn fans have found me with a fury, as to be expected. All good. I totally get it. Stephen Pearl, the assistant, was sure to find me, by the way. Just send me a text, number 27. That's where I had Auburn preseason. Yeah, there we go. But I own it. I was wrong. Auburn looks incredible. Seeing that team up close and what Maui provides you sitting there on the courtside with the media row is so impressive. Now, reminder, Auburn a year ago, top 5 team at KenPom, but got upset in the first round by Yale. This team looks to be even better. And to see its offense go gives me belief that if Auburn can sustain this, or at least tap into it again when it needs to in March, we'll be on the short list 2-3 teams of the most likely national championship contenders. Johni Broome, see, players like this fascinate me. He's absurdly dominant, but when you watch him play and when you hear him speak and you see his on-court demeanor, doesn't give off that aura, that vibe. Doesn't matter, man. He gets it done. He had like 9 points, 5 boards, 3 assists, and like 3 blocks in the first 9 minutes of the title game against Memphis. I put this in my column, worth repeating here on the show. The statistical gap right now between Johni Broome at number 1 and Cooper Flagg at number 2 in the KenPom Player of the Year algorithm, the gap between 1 and 2 is significantly larger than the gap between Flagg at 2, and I haven't checked since last night, but whoever was at 10, it was RJ Lewis before, but that's been cycled in and out. That's a joke 3.5 weeks into the season. Broome is awesome. Got to speak with him after. In fact, Nada, I had some one-on-ones with Pearl and Broome on video for HQ. Feel free to drop those in wherever you want. And we can add that for the audio. It's not going to be here on the video stream, but we'll add that for the audio. Considering how Memphis had played in the first 2 days and how good it looked, and its 3-point shooting, and to see Auburn show up and just pluck the will from Memphis in the first 3 minutes. I mean, I'm not going to say the game was over at the second TV timeout, but once it was a 9-0 game, I had little confidence that Memphis was going to be able to come back and actually take it. I'm going to give Denver Jones a shout out. This dude shut down RJ Davis, held him to 12 points. Tyrese Hunter held him to 11. Tyrese Hunter didn't score a basket until there was like 16 minutes to go in the game. He's a really, really good defender. And Broome's going to get a lot of credit, as he should. Dylan Cardwell is going to get a lot of credit, as he should. And I'll have a note on Cardwell in just a second. Chad Baker-Mazara, he has a knack for just continually providing a jolt of a play every 2 to 4 to 6 minutes that, if Auburn goes a couple possessions for it's a little bit of a dip, here he comes, boom, there you go. It's just up and down the line. They do have the number one offense in the sport per Ken Palm. I'm going to check Torvik right now. It is number one. This is no projected bias here. Auburn's one. Iowa State, by the way, this season is number two. I'll get to the Cyclones in a little bit here. Broom has been just outstanding. He averaged 21.7. This is in Maui. He averaged 21.7 points, 15 boards. I think it was 4.6 assists, 4 blocks. Just an awesome college player. And this isn't surprising. Preseason All-American. Expected to be one of the best bigs in the country. He's exceeding that at this point. His averages right now in the season are 20.7 points, 12.9 rebounds, 3.3 assists, shooting 59.4% from the field. He's good to hit the occasional three-pointer. He's been tremendous. And to think that, Maui is so interesting. This team was it beat Iowa State, then it beat North Carolina, then it beat Memphis. Beat Iowa State 83-81. But in that game, it was down 18 to the Cyclones. And I don't think Iowa State is going to, if it gets up by, say, 13, 14 points in a game again this season, which it will, I don't think it'll blow a game like that again, period. Iowa State might not blow a 10-point lead the rest of the season. That's how good the Cyclones look. So credit to Auburn for getting it done with their cast of characters. I mean, between Broom, Jones, Cardwell, Baker Mazzara, Todd Pettifer didn't have a great tournament, but obviously available. JP Pegues had a good showing on Wednesday. Shaney Johnson, he's got good potential. I think Pearl might have said he had a wrist. You got to forgive me here. A lot of stuff is blending through after the past 3 days. Miles Kelly, a senior wing. They just have dudes up and down. They're really, really deep. And, Pearl had he took the time out in the press conference to say, I'm going to paraphrase him here. The full quote's in my column, which you can read at CBSSports.com or in the CBS Sports App. He basically said, there's a lot of discussion and talk about how players have changed, basically referencing the NIL and all that stuff. And he said that's not true. The forces around them have changed. Players still want to be coached hard. They want to be guided. They want to be in this for the right reasons. And that's where he's coming from with his team and his group. Supremely impressed. And how could you not be by what Auburn was able to do in Maui, in that gym? Auburn fans came out really, really strong, really impressive. And I can't wait to see what they do next. You know who Auburn has next? I know Auburn fans watching and listening know. Auburn plays at Duke next week. So you've got Janai Broom and Cardwell going up against Cooper Flagg and Kaman Malawach. I don't want to be prisoner of the moment, but I feel like we have gotten more top 10 level matchups in the first month of the season than we have in the past half decade. Like every year we get good stuff, don't get me wrong. But this is with regularity, like every 3 or 4 days. It's been an awesome opening of the season for college basketball. And I would argue that the two biggest stories in the sport now are teams that were on display in Maui. One quick thing on Cardwell. He, in the post-game press conference on Wednesday, essentially unprompted, goes into this story about, and I did not realize this, and if he had talked about it locally or whatever, I never saw it. So Dylan Cardwell was a solid recruit, but he was a big man recruit and was the kind of guy that with the hopes of, by year 2, year 3 being a starter, maybe he's a strong, big center. Maybe he can turn himself into a pro, right? But Bruce Pearl brings in Walker Kessler. And although he doesn't play like Jabari Smith, that's another big. And then Janai Broom transfers from Morehead State. And so he never really gets his opportunity to be the focal point as a big man. And to be fair, his skill set isn't necessarily built for that. But Cardwell revealed on Wednesday that for essentially more than a year after Janai Broom got to Auburn, he didn't embrace Broome whatsoever. Like, gave him the cold shoulder, wasn't rooting for him, was hoping, and these are my words more than just his, but was basically hoping that Broome wasn't going to hit so that he'd have a bigger chance. And then something in him changed. He said it was the Virginia Tech game a year ago where he decided, and however he got there, I don't know, but he decided, I'm going to finally pray for Chani Broome to have a good game. I haven't done this. I need to do it. He does. Broome goes and scores 30 against Virginia Tech. It was his best game yet as an Auburn player. It's his second season. And in that moment, Cardwell, speaking to his faith, was thinking, all right, here's my message. I can either be happy for him or I can be bitter that he had an awesome game and I played like 12 minutes. He chose to be happy. He noticed that Broome was consistently encouraging him. You know, he would hear Broome's voice over all the other players when he was on the floor and Broome was on the bench during games. And now they have a genuinely tremendous bond. You got to go read all the quotes in the story. I cannot remember more than 2, maybe 3 times a player being this honest and transparent about a major character flaw at a public press conference the way that Cardwell was. Super, super impressive. And obviously for him to be able to say that with Broome sitting right next to him, and I do, Nada, when you queue up the, or if you already have in the audio after the fact, I asked Broome about this, and he gives a good quote. Cardwell actually popped his head back in behind us as I was doing the interview. It speaks to their relationship, how they have grown, how comfortable they are to be as open as possible as teammates. Because as I write the column, you know, if you're a Division I player at a high major program, there is so much pressure on you to maximize every possible minute that you have on the floor to better your chances at making the NBA or having a legitimate professional career. And because of that environment inevitably at certain places, some places more than others, is going to breed resentment among players. It gets to a point where certain guys thinking, I should be getting this much, but I'm only getting this much. And how can I get back to getting this much? And how players handle that. Frankly, it doesn't get talked a lot about publicly because it's not a great look for programs, but I'm just telling you, coaches behind the scenes will regularly express off-record concerns, and sometimes that kind of stuff doesn't even leave a program, but this kind of stuff is prominent, and by the way, it's completely understandable why it happens when you consider these are 18, 19, 20-year-old men, incredible competitors. This is not unnatural, but for Cardwell and Broome to have recognized the issue and for Cardwell to have fully embraced him as his brother, and now, oh, by the way, when they're on the floor together, they don't play together a ton. Shouts to Evan Miyakawa. I actually hit him up on my ride to the airport and asked for the numbers. I think he texted me. I'm going to bring this up here. He sent to me exactly. I want to give you this exactly as it was here. He said, okay, Broome and Cardwell have played a total of 27% of the team's minutes together. Of all the duos that play that much together, there are 16 pairs that qualify. They're the second highest rated duo on the team. They're plus 51 points per 100 possessions better when the team averages plus 31. Pearl and staff are making that work as much as they possibly can. It's really impressive. Kansas is going to hold the number 1 ranking, and I got no issue with that. Auburn looks like the best team right now. Could that change in a week and a half? Of course. Auburn's going to go play at Duke. He's got to go play at Duke, and a Duke team that's, going to have plenty of urgency after it didn't win against Kansas. Just by the way, as a quick side note before we go to break, I'm going to just talk about Maui because I was ensconced in Maui, and while I was checking in here or there, I was not able to really follow a ton of the other hoops there. I'll do a deep dive over the Thanksgiving holiday and give that a look. But this is just going to be all about this is a Norlander Maui special here. So those are my thoughts on Auburn. Now we gotta get to the Huskies because the fact that they are 0-3 and did not win a game in Maui is incredible. We'll get to that after the break. Nada, cue it up. So UConn, man, was in the 7th place game. I actually had to leave before UConn played. My initial flight out of Hawaii was later, but then they only have so many red eyes, and for whatever reason, the plane I booked 3 months ago got changed, and 8 weeks ago they said, nope, you're on this one that was like 2 hours earlier. So I couldn't stay for the UConn Dayton game. Maybe that's for the better, because UConn ended with a thud, being incapable of even keeping it close against Dayton, dropping to 20th in Ken Palm. They're 4-3. They lose to Memphis 99-97. On Monday, I know Parrish and Finkelstein did a pod on that. They lose to Colorado 73-72, and then an 85-67 loss to Dayton. So the loss is the second largest Hurley has ever suffered by a non-conference opponent since he got the job. The worst was 19 to Iowa, his first season on the job. UConn lost one non-conference game, period, postseason, regular season, in the past 2 years. It lost 3 in 3 days here. Now, Memphis looks better than we expected, and Memphis played physically. They shot well. You know, I embedded with UConn leading up to the Memphis game to basically write the story of, okay, if they're going to chase this three-peat, what does this team look like? And, you know, what headspace is Dan Hurley in? Why did he choose to come back? All this stuff. That feels like 3 weeks ago, man. The defense, and Hurley talked about this on Wednesday, the defense is glaring. Now, the idea that UConn isn't looking like a top 10 team, no, like a top 30 team, it's not a stunner because they lost 4 NBA players, and that's going to catch up to you. But nobody had anything like this. Like, okay, the Memphis loss is in overtime by 2. I get it. You let it. You squirreled it away, though. Colorado score is better than 1.2 points per possession. A Colorado team that, will it be better than 13th or 14th in the Big 12? We don't really know. And then Dayton drops 85 on you. And I think it was 27 of 30 from the foul line. I'm bringing this up here. It was 27 of 30. Dayton's, we'll get to the Flyers before we're out of here real quick as well. Good job on Dayton for showing up, being ready to play. UConn is it's such a compelling story. I mean, to me, this is one of the more stunning sports stories of the past 6 months. The fact that they would go from winning the national championship, dominating all non-conference opponents, to now looking like a team that has lost its way entirely. Now, Hurley did say he feels like the players might be feeling the pressure of wearing that uniform, that UConn jersey. There's probably some of that. Said that, you know, the teams shell themselves. They've got to readjust their psyche. The defense is going to have to be overhauled. You know, there's this juxtaposition with UConn as well, where they are either playing, for the most part, NCAA tournament competition or outright atrocious low major opponents that are in the 330s or worse at Ken Palm. Like, they're now, as we speak, they're in the air. They're flying home. They play late, they lose late. The game doesn't end until after 2:30 in the morning East Coast time. They're flying home. They got to play a terrible team. Play Maryland Eastern Shore Saturday, but it's still, they got to turn around and play a game Saturday night. Maryland Eastern Shore 2-8. The 2 wins are against non-D1s. 360 at Ken Palm this morning. How we doing? And then it's Baylor. It's at Texas. Gonzaga at the Garden, and then Xavier the next 4 after that. Like, answers are going to have to come soon. I think the staff is good enough to change the trajectory here, but I'm not oblivious to the fact that I think Hurley taking on some humility here is probably bringing a lot of joy to a lot of college basketball fans. Whatever. To me, I wrote this in my Monday notebook because Hurley was going after the officials. He actually kind of even flirted with going there Wednesday again because of the free throw discrepancy. You know, he is tapping back into a version of himself that he tried to get away from. He's always going to be who he is on the sideline, don't get me wrong. But if you really look at what he was in his Wagner days, at the start of his Rhode Island days, and then toward the end of his Rhode Island days, he started at UConn. Like, he did dial that notch back a couple of ticks. It's almost like he knew in the Memphis game really what this team was and where it was at. And I asked him, I asked him after the Colorado loss, as we were walking to the bus. I was like, did you really think that losing at least 2 games in Maui was on the table when you flew out here? Like, privately? He's like, no, absolutely, I did. Now, he wasn't going to vocalize that because he's ridiculously superstitious and all this stuff, and he doesn't want to speak it into existence and all that. But he sensed it, and the defense has to change. The point guard stuff is also a huge issue. I mean, Aiden Mahaney, I don't know they got to figure that out. He shouldn't be starting. He did get benched in Maui. Sandiara, you'd rather have there, but they don't have the size on the perimeter from a defensive standpoint that they had. They have a different kind of team this season. And if you're looking for a silver lining, if you're UConn, I got a couple for you. One, as Hurley said, you fly across the Pacific Ocean for a tournament like this. You lose the first game the way you lost it. To fix the problems, like, they can really compound quickly, and you can't really, you don't have practices the next couple of days. You're trying to go through this in walkthroughs, and just it's hard to change issues when you know that they're there. So maybe this is isolated. If you're UConn, maybe it's isolated and they get things adjusted moving forward, and we look up after the Xavier game and they've won 3 of their 4 games against high major teams, and they're back in decent standing there. Keep that in mind. I also think that Caravan is the right kind of player to be steadying that locker room. Like, a lot of the guys, if not all the guys, are looking to him right now in this moment. And having talked to him, knowing him a little bit, I think he's completely built to handle this. And if he wasn't, or if he wasn't on the team with someone else, it could be a lot worse. But Hurley and his staff are fortunate to have Caravan and his experience, his maturity. Like, that kind of stuff really does matter in moments like this. But UConn, man, wow. 8th place in Maui. No one had that, period. It's a crazy, crazy turn of events there. And the fact that they got run by Dayton, that last game, they had to wait. Michigan State UNC went to overtime. The whole deal there, just wild. Someone in the chat here is making a note. I've thought about this. This is going to be for a show soon. Big East has got issues. UConn did this. Creighton's not doing what it needs to. I think Providence lost to Oklahoma right in the Bahamas on Wednesday, I believe. You can go on down the line. Like, Georgetown's not better yet. There's a whole mess of stuff. The Big East in general is not. I think Xavier's okay, but I think it got beat pretty decently by Michigan yesterday. Seton Hall already has 3 losses. That league is not pacing itself toward 4 bids, 5 bids. We'll see what changes there. All right, let's keep it going. I'm not going to go an hour in the airport here, but I do want to at least give some teams some love here across the board. Let's go Iowa State. Cyclones. Again, I mentioned it before. The 2nd-rated offense in the country per Torvik. Really impressive showing after that was a rough way to lose to Auburn, because Auburn really just flipped it on them. And you lose a game like that, kind of not the same exact scenario, but we saw how UConn couldn't respond and recover, and you look at Iowa State and it was able to fix itself with the quickness. And TJ Otzelberger he's got himself a pretty good group. They beat Dayton 89-84. They came back from a 9-point deficit, and then they had no issues with Colorado whatsoever. Only a couple of blowouts that we had in Maui there. Keyshawn Gilbert. So I thought Taman Lipsey would be the best player on the team, and Taman Lipsey's really good. Keyshawn Gilbert's the dude. As coincidence would have it, I actually wound up eating next to Keyshawn Gilbert's parents on Sunday night. I didn't know they were Keyshawn Gilbert's parents, so Keyshawn Gilbert showed up and was talking to them, and got to say hi to him. He is among the more underrated players in the country, and because I guess Iowa State didn't win the Maui Invitational, he's not underrated amongst Iowa State's fan base. But as a 6'4" combo guard that can get in the lane, I actually wish he developed more of a long range shot. He seems to do a lot of things that Otzelberger's staff needs him to do. So him, Milan Momcilovic, who had a really nice game against Colorado, Curtis Jones. You go on down the line. TJ Otzelberger right now has by far his best offense ever at Iowa State. That's a really encouraging sign. You lose by 2 to Auburn. That loss is going to age just beautifully there. And now Iowa State gets a week off. It's going to play against Marquette, a Big East team that's actually holding up its end of the bargain here, one of the few. They're going to get Marquette, but good response for Iowa State to come back after losing to Auburn, beat Dayton in a grinder, and then handle Colorado with no issues whatsoever. Good on them for doing it. Michigan State beats UNC on Wednesday. Again, apologies about the overhead in the airport. It's just part of the deal here. Game went to overtime. That building is just incredible. Like, it genuinely feels as loud as the Garden when it's going. Decibel level, it probably matches it, to be honest. UNC Michigan State fans were incredible. Michigan State got its first notable win. It's only top 80 KenPom win so far. You had Trey Holloman have a season high, career high 19 in that one. That dude isn't short on confidence. Really like him a lot. They got their most complete games yet as a team. Michigan State did, and you go to Maui. You're not expected to win the thing. You walk out 2-1. You're going to take it. Memphis really did them good, but they beat Colorado without too much resistance, and then they hold off a big UNC push. Good on Tom Izzo. I know I said on the pod that I was going to resist any kind of judgment on Sparty until they played in Maui. We at least have a better idea. Like, I do think they need to win by committee, and on any given night, it could be Holloman, it could be Fears, it could be Akins, it could be Richardson, who didn't play Wednesday because he took an elbow to the head, so he had a little bit of a headache or whatnot there. Frankie Fiddler's got some potential there, but they really are a by committee team. I don't think they'll be a top 15 team this season, but they'll be in the mix in the top third of the Big Ten, as they should be. And you go 2-1 in Maui in a loaded field, you'll take it. As for North Carolina, man. So UNC is lacking significant interior presence, and they're not going to overcome this. Jalen Washington, try as he might, is just, I don't think he can be the guy who is able on a game-in, game-out basis to step up and give UNC what it's looking for inside. Now, Van Allen Lubin, the transfer from Vandy, he had a couple of nice moments here or there. He's more undersized, but he's got some oomph to him. Jalen Withers, you're getting a little bit there, but after watching UNC in person, I think you lean into small ball. RJ Davis, Cadeau, Seth Trimble had himself a nice trip. Apologies for the coughing again, less than an hour of sleep. Drake Powell, podcast listeners that have been listening closely know that I've been in on Powell for a good while. I think he's got awesome potential. Go small all the time and just try and blitz and run teams and just try and lead the nation in adjusted tempo. Get your offense off of that and just try and be a counter and make teams play with you. You're not going to win every game that way, but I think they have to go even faster and rely on their guards, because when they're clicking, they're really, really good. They're still learning here and there, but that's got to be the move for UNC. They beat Dayton. They're lucky to beat Dayton. Remember, Carolina was down 21 to the Flyers on Monday. They come back, they escape, and then they don't really give Auburn a game, and then they give a push against Michigan State, but they wind up losing in overtime. UNC gets Alabama at home next week. We've got the SEC ACC Challenge forthcoming there. Keep that in mind. Let's talk Flyers real quick. Dayton gets out of there 1-2. Blew the 21-point lead to UNC. Couldn't hold on against Iowa State. Anthony Grant, the Atlantic 10, needed to get at least one win in this field. Dayton had more to gain than basically any other program, in my opinion, by getting in this field this season. You get a win over UConn, you got to figure and hope that that's going to age pretty well. It'll be a quad one win. I thought that was pretty crucial there. I picked Dayton to be the best team in the A10, and I'm sticking with that. After seeing Enoch Cheeks, Malachi Smith, Nate Santos all play together in person, that's a really, really solid team that I think's got good balance. And if they really get it going, could be like a top 20 offensive unit in the country this season. I like what I like what they got there. I like their pieces. Let's talk Tigers. Memphis goes 2-1. And I wrote about Tyrese Hunter on Tuesday, because Tyrese Hunter, man, him and Haggerty are probably the best transfer combo in the country. Again, credit to Auburn for shutting them down, but Hunter has been, the Auburn game aside, a bit of a revelation here. Memphis has 5 top 100 KenPom wins. They've come out looking pretty damn good. They're the best three-point shooting team in the country as of this morning, 47%. And there's no shame in losing the Auburn game. You beat UConn in OT. You take care of business against Michigan State. Penny Hardaway had to load up in the non-conference. They still have a road game against Clemson, a road game against Virginia. They play Mississippi State and Ole Miss at home. These are all non-conference games, so Memphis is going to have I mean, it'll have more top 100 KenPom games than any team in the country in the non-con. And I think they're going to make the tournament with ease. Hunter is, I was talking to people in that program, Hunter is a really, really good leader, and he's got a confidence and swagger about him, man, that is awesome. And I don't know if he had a couple of bursts previously in his career where he was getting hot from three. He is 52.4% from three-point range so far this season. That can't sustain, but is he going to be a 43, 44% three-point shooter this season? It'd be pretty outstanding if that wound up being the case there. Wow, it was cool to see Memphis show up well, aggressive. That team's like it's an interesting matchup issue, because talking to multiple teams, what you see on tape, like you see how they can play physically, they shoot well, but then you actually like step on the floor with them, like it's not going to be fun for a lot of teams that have to face them. So good on the Tigers for a really productive trip out to Maui. 2-1. You gotta take that. Colorado, they go 1-2. They beat UConn, but they beat UConn by 1. They weren't competitive against Iowa State whatsoever. And then on Monday, Michigan State handled them with ease. Tad Boyle lost his top 5 scorers. He's a really good coach, but he's relying on an NAIA transfer, a D2 transfer. It's just going to be a little bit of an up and down year. I asked Tad about that on Wednesday. Like, is he prepared for the very real possibility that it just could be this? You might have a team that's just ultimately a little too unpredictable. And he said that he told himself he needed to be patient. He normally isn't, but with this team in particular, he really, really needed to be patient with this group and take his time with their growth potential there. So we'll see how that comes along. Now, to keep me honest here, I'm kind of vamping off the top of my head. Did I talk about every team that was in the field? I think I did.
I believe you have.
I think that was all 8 of them. We can wrap up this Thanksgiving morning podcast. As you can see, the sun's actually started rising since we started the show. I've got my Aloha shirt. I had to buy this thing. It's $50, but I'm not going to turn around and show you. But there's a cool little Maui graphic on the back here too. Just a couple of quick words on getting to cover this event. First of all, a lot of Pod fans went. That was really, really cool. 2 in particular I want to shout out. There's a guy named John who was wearing a Shouts to Devin Downey shirt. Kansas fan. We had a good little chat there during one of the games. Really, really cool. Great chat there, John. I appreciate you. And then someone else. So this is Dave from New Hampshire. You're watching on YouTube. You can see here, he dropped. I'm in the middle of filing on Press Row on Wednesday, and he goes, "Hey, Norlander, love the podcast. There are more of us than there are of them. Dave from New Hampshire, UNC class of 1977, enjoying a bucket list trip." Me too, man. It was cool to hear from the podcast listeners and the basketball fans that went out there. This was definitely a bucket list trip. I want to thank Adi Joseph, who's our editorial VP, and Marcus Nelson, who was our primary college basketball editor, for signing off on this. I've long wanted to do it. It is incredible. If I could do it again, I would not leave the Wednesday night of Maui. I would leave, but it's Thanksgiving, so you want to get back and see the fam and all that. And I'm actually going to be on CBS Sports Network Friday in the studio, so check me there. So I got to get back today and then dip into the city tomorrow for some TV stuff. But if you're going to go in the future and do all this, yeah, just try and give yourself like a good 2-3 days either before or after to really enjoy it there. My father and my brother went. It was incredible for them to go. My dad had always wanted to go to Hawaii, had never been, and they got to go to a couple games. Their seats were right behind the benches each time, so they were on television the whole time. My brother, who's like 6'5" and 225, was standing up most of the game. He was just into it. He wasn't like trying to be like, look at me. He was just he loves hoop, and he was involved in it. It was an awesome thing for me personally to get to do that with them, because my wife didn't want to bring the kids, which I get. My mother didn't want to come out, so they got to go and experience that, and that was a trip that was really really awesome, and got to see a couple of cool little spots in Maui real briefly. Swam in the Pacific Ocean for the first time ever. I realized that. On the flight back this morning, I was like, wait a second, had I ever been in the Pacific? I hadn't. It was really awesome. The tournament itself, I'm going to write a column on this. It'll publish sometime in the next 24-ish hours, I would think. There were the wildfires last year, and it was in Honolulu, and it came back to Lahaina Civic Center. COVID pushed this tournament away from that building for a couple of years as well, and just picking up on the people there, that aloha spirit, man, they were ready, willing, and wanting to have this thing returned, because there's a lot of understandable sensitivity about the fact that Lahaina's rebuilding. I was told on Wednesday that I guess the first family that had been living in Lahaina and had his house burned down, the first family just moved back into a newly built house and has residency that just happened in the past 1 to 2 weeks. And so this process is now really starting to pick up, and the recovery is going to take years. In some ways, the recovery will, it's changed forever, and there are different timelines for different things. But man, that tournament means so much to that area, and it is an incredible place. You get off the plane in Hawaii, and you're like, yes, the air smells different. It really is something. That gym is phenomenal. If you don't follow me on Instagram, feel free to do so. I wanted to give people at least a little bit of perspective of just how cozy this place is. It is small and it is incredible. There's nothing like it in sports. You've got big time games in a small gym with some of the best teams, some of the best coaches, some of the best players in college. It is such a special event, and the future of the Maui Invitational, it's a little bit hazy. We have a changing economic environment where different tournaments are popping up, different one-offs. Duke and Kansas played in Las Vegas. Those schools made money for playing in that game, and it was a highly watched, incredible matchup. But those things weren't populating the TV schedule for decades and decades, and Maui had kind of developed its own little niche. To me, I know Thanksgiving is here once that first tip goes up game one in Maui. So Maui's not going anywhere, but I think it's got a real challenge about the teams it recruits, the fields it continues to get, and does it have to change formats? Is it going to be 8 teams, 3 games, 3 days? If it is, are those 8 teams going to be lesser on balance? I think probably yes. Can you change format? Can you actually have it? Because it costs these schools money to go out there. They don't get money for doing it. They basically break even with their ticket packages. I don't know. What I do know is it's a really important event to a lot of people, and it's the best college sports event to me outside of March Madness that we have. And there is a certain level of comfort in having it every single year. And it was a real treat to get to cover it. Bill Walton's spirit was also felt prominently there as well. It was, it was a special week and a loaded field, and just the best day one we've ever had. Oh, by the way, there had never been a day one that was that good. There just wasn't. And to the fans that came out and watched that, I mean, how can you not want to go back after experiencing that? Just really, really cool stuff. And a special time overall. I really enjoyed it. I'm probably forgetting a few things here, but hey, it's Thanksgiving. Thank you for watching. If you've been watching on YouTube, we have more episodes coming soon. Again, see a few people checking here on YouTube, looking for some chats and discussions on some of the other games. I was ensconced in Maui, as one should be when they go to Maui. So I'm not going to talk on a bunch of stuff that I haven't watched yet. I got to check in on all that. And we still have games today, over the weekend. We'll really have plenty to get to here over the next 48 hours or so as we get more results in. And, we get 1 month into the season. So I want to thank Nada for hopping on and producing this morning. I appreciate you. Thank all of you. I'm thankful for our listenership and our viewership. Continue, please, if you could. If it's been a while, however you listen, please go rate the podcast 5 stars. We do appreciate you so very much for all of that. And we'll podcast again soon. I don't know what the plan is tomorrow. I don't know what my body's going to feel like over the next 24 hours. Again, I'm going into NYC for CBS Sports Network duty on Friday. So traditionally in years past, we have not done a Friday podcast on Thanksgiving because you've got Battle for Atlantis and there's these bigger games in the day. So we'll get you a show real soon. There might be something tomorrow, but if not, Sunday at the absolute latest. I'm going to go try and get some food. Try not to fall asleep in the airport. And thank you so much. We will talk to you again real soon. Happy Thanksgiving. Maui forever.